Hello there. My name is Prateek Jain. Right now, I'm a senior product manager at a company called Twilio. It's a cloud software company based out of San Francisco. And we're in the middle of what we call hypergrowth. Today, we're going to be talking about how to be an enterprise PM and build for hypergrowth. As a quick introduction, I come from the background of engineering. I used to design airplanes at the beginning of my career, and I have a love for technology that makes people more productive, that brings their time back, that makes them do more things. And so I transitioned from designing airplanes to building software products because they can be built faster, iterated on faster, and scaled faster. This is not about my journey, though. This is about how to be an enterprise PM and build for hypergrowth. And we're going to be breaking it down into the three parts that catch your eye in that question. One, what is the difference between enterprise product management and consumer product management? We'll tease those out. Two, we'll talk about what it means to hit hyperscale. Going through hypergrowth has its own unique characteristics, and diving into how to take advantage of those tailwinds is part of section 2. Section 3 is a product case study, a product that I got to ship at Twilio that we'll dive into with some depth. Let's get started. What is the difference between an enterprise product versus a consumer product? Well, the persona that you're serving is different. Therefore, their problems are different, which means the way that you design and build the product has to be different. The way that you measure it, your metrics are different. And essentially, the goalpost is different. A consumer product, let's say your favorite payments app or Instagram, where you post your pictures, its goal is to keep you hooked onto the app, to make you not ever want to leave and go away and do other things. An enterprise app, though, is not trying to consume all of your time. It is trying to let you get your time back by more efficiently doing the things you want to do at work. So therefore, if the problems are different, the people we're serving is also different. A consumer might be 14 to 35, the target age group for Instagram. But the persona at work will be completely different. We'll talk about it. And because of these differences, the person who builds those products, the product manager, is different. And here's how they're different. Let's talk about the persona first. Meet Marcos. Marcos is our typical enterprise customer persona. He has 20 years of experience. He really knows his craft. And 20 years of his operational customer success career, he's used all the tools out there. And honestly, he has hated most of them. In fact, he's so over software bugs and glitches because he has to deal with them at work all day that he intends to use anything but a smartphone so that he doesn't have to deal with updates. Oh, and he uses a Microsoft Edge as his browser. Now, on the other hand, the same tool that you're building for customer support, his team basically, also includes Alberto. Alberto's first job and first tool that he's using as work is what you're about to ship. And this is his first gig out of college. He already loves soccer and Fortnite. He's extremely savvy with coding up solutions for his peers. He hacks on the dark web sometimes. He has the latest iPhone and Google Chrome as his preferred browser. And he's using the same tools that Marcos is using, and they have to be able to do it together. Based on what you build, they both have to have a delightful experience, which means the process has to be different. You could start with the insight that there is a market need for something, or the users are facing a particular problem. Then you have to validate it with interviews, problem interviews. Once you have a sense of the solution, you can do a problem solution validation interviews before ever really writing a line of code. Very different from an A/B test person's mentality who would just take a consumer product idea, try to just quickly ship it as a feature and A/B test it. You can't just A/B test a bunch of enterprise features, because if a customer needs it, you can't just redact it away from them once you've shipped that feature. Remember, validation interviews are to enterprise product managers what A/B testing is to consumer product managers. It's a punch in the gut to your ego. Once you validate an idea and maybe you've shipped a version, the metrics that you measure success are different. The very first metric of an enterprise product has to be how well it works. So task success. Then how well it integrates with other pieces. For example, if you're trying to build a marketing tool, does it go into the analytics suites that the company uses for marketing attribution? We're talking here, there's a screenshot of something called Twilio Flex. Flex is oriented towards Marcos and Alberto's use case for customer support. Does this integrate with, for example, the customer database that the customer might have? So how well it integrates, how well it works, and then how fast is it to use? Fast is very important, because suppose a person is spending their entire 10-hour day just working on your tool, and this tool is 10% slower than yesterday, then they got 10% less done. An hour was wasted in one day. Imagine that with thousands of employees using this tool. So fast is super important. And to make things fast and to onboard people onto it fast, the tools have to be built in an easy way. Easy to use, easy to onboard, easy to learn, easy to train. And then last in this list, but not excluded from this list, is pretty. Enterprise products don't have to be gorgeous, but they have to be well-intentioned and designed well. The days of clunky old office tools are long gone. And if you decide that that's what you're going to serve your customers with, well, if everything else is the same, customers will choose a better design product any day. So because the metrics are different, the goalpost also has to be thought of differently. You win by finding the goalpost, which means winning by finding how to make your customers most successful. Usually I found that it is by helping them speed up what they were already doing before. Now remember, the goal will keep changing, but the direction generally stays the same unless your industry gets disrupted. I work at Twilio, which disrupted the telco space. Earlier, telco was defined by really good, reliable hardware installations. And Twilio introduced how to make telco infrastructure accessible via APIs. And we've disrupted that sector. And over the past 10 years, we've built quite a formidable lead and found ourselves in hypergrowth because of the product market fit that we found. And now the telcos are trying to catch up. The power of disruption is very important, but not every company is built on the face of these wins. You win by finding the customer's success. That's the goal. That's the goal you chase. Now, let's settle into the second, more mysterious word in the title of this talk. What does hypergrowth or hyperscale mean? In the classic tech terminology, it means finding your inflection point so that you're at exponential growth rates. In the fortunate scenario, if you find yourself in hypergrowth, know that your customer base, your customer demand, your revenue, your problems, your infrastructure costs, everything are now increasing in exponential rates. And what it means is the demands from your infrastructure and from your people are radically different. And the things that you need to do to move the needle to be ever faster, to make that exponential growth even faster, is what the best product managers are trying to figure out and then execute on. Let's dive into what these components are. The demand. During hypergrowth, product management is very easy because customers are constantly yelling at you about what they want. But if they're just yelling at you in different ways, you got to build the instinct for what matters. A few different ways. You have metrics around the usage of your product, the traffic on your website, the ratings that people are leaving on different product experiences or surveys that you've launched. Then you've got the qualitative stories. One, read a bunch of support tickets. And then people will use the words that they use to express their frustration. Two, the data exists in a lot of NPS surveys, surveys that your company is conducting, surveys that you're sending to your own customers, and surveys that come back with qualitative comments, not just a score. Three, sales requests. If you're in Hypergrowth and you are in an enterprise capacity, then you'll probably have a sales force that's going out there to try to sell the product. Now, they will hear this constantly. Why doesn't your feature do this? Why doesn't your product offer that? Why can't I use this platform in this way? And they will constantly have to turn to you, the product manager, and ask those questions. It's an incredible gold mine of data. And if you can find a seamless, channelized way to record all these questions or feature requests that sales comes with, then you will be sitting on a pile of ideas that you didn't even have to come up with. To sieve through all of these metrics and stories, you have to build instincts. An instinct about where your industry might be going or where your customers' industries are going so that you can spot the trend and be ahead of it. An instinct around how to interview your customers so that you get to understand what troubles they're facing, what would delight them. And the instinct of visiting them where they're at, physically or on Zoom, staying a day in the life of customer X, of Marcos, of Alberto. And then you can get an instinct of what might work beyond just the deluge of sales requests and metrics. Then build elegant infrastructure that scales. Remember, if you're a tiny little company and you launch a feature and it has a bug, it's fine, no big deal. If you are a big company, you have tons of features, tons of users, tons of things are happening all the time, those features cannot break. And each feature cannot be its own tiny little widget. It has to evolve into a product experience that your enterprise customer, your SMB, your small shop that uses your product will need to use to complete workflow activities, some sort of forecasting or ticket management or new design work or new development or whatever you do. And then once your product can finish a workflow, and then it can support other products to be built on top of it, added layers of complexity, different use cases on the same product, then what you're building is a platform that serves as infrastructure. Infrastructure is bulletproof. It's resilient, it's expandable, and you're not worried about it when you go to sleep at night that it might break because it's foundational and everything else can be built on top of it. And our customers have come to rely on it. Remember, companies that fail to become unicorns are companies that fail to build infrastructure. They build features rather than infrastructure. For example, the infrastructure that makes Twilio possible is a massive layer of interconnections that we have built with our software layer and telco hardware. With this network of carriers and network operators across the world, we can now power a bunch of channels like voice calls, SMS messages, WhatsApp messages, video calls, whatever you need in terms of channel APIs. Now, these channel APIs, along with compliance features, which are very important for any enterprise deal, things like single sign-on, things like authentication, security controls, and then another set of tooling that are needed for communications workflows allow us to build verticalized solutions like Twilio Flex, which is a customer support vertical solution, or marketing, which has marketing campaigns offered by Twilio. It's all built on a foundation of various layers of infrastructure, platforms atop platforms atop platforms that can then serve to build whole new products. So, as you can imagine, we're in hypergrowth. We have an army of salespeople across the world selling, learning, and bringing that feedback back to us. So we get feature requests all day. We get feature requests all day, but if we just did all of them, we just built them all, you could replace all the product managers with Slido. You could just put a survey up front and people could upvote, and the highest upvoted features could be built by engineering. Then they wouldn't need us, but they do. And it's because we built the instinct and the metrics to find the constantly moving goalpost and can help direct the company's resources into serving unknown needs, compliance needs, workflow needs, whatever the need is to serve the customer's journey. So how does a product manager like me help move the needle for a hypergrowth company like Twilio in its core business, messaging? Here's a case study we're going to dive into using messaging insights. I'm going to break it down into 4 phases. The why we took on this initiative, who it is that we're going to serve, how we thought about designing and building this product, what it became, and then, of course, I'm going to tell you, so what? What were the results? Let's enter part 3. At first, I noticed when looking at the NPS data that the NPS data had dropped in a particular quarter. What is NPS? It's the net promoter score of, let's say, your product experience or your company. It's you asking customers whether they would refer your services to their colleagues and friends, which is a safe way of saying, how would you rate us from 1 to 10, where you're only assuming that 9s and 10s are positive. Everybody else is either neutral or has a negative bent towards you. And you really want to measure the number of positive individuals who really look upon your company favorably. So the net promoter score is a good indicator. It's kind of a constant clock to direct you how you're going. We noticed that customers who rated us low in net promoter score surveys really dinged us on troubleshooting for messaging. And so that's what I chose to go focus on. What do you mean by troubleshooting is not easy? And the words we found were very interesting. To go find the words that customers use and to go find the data to support this hypothesis that we can fix this troubleshooting problem, I looked at all of our analytics in Heap, where we store our console experience analytics, on Looker. I went and read 3,000 plus verbatim comments from the NPS data. We get 1,000 plus support tickets each month. I took 1,000 as a sample set and read them all. And I learned so many things that were so unrelated to troubleshooting as well. Stuff that I enjoyed learning, stuff that I never expected to. And then I acted upon it. We'll talk about that in a second. More than anything, to build empathy, I spent the time doing 30 customer interviews, painstakingly finding different types of customers and learning what their troubles have been. This is one of my favorite illustrations of what a customer interview should and shouldn't be. You could ask the question, when was the last time you tried X? Have you ever Googled for a solution to Y? But never turn up to a customer interview with your shiny new product in your hand and say, hey, dear customer, here, I built this. Would you use this? They have no choice but to say yes. And you will never learn the truth when you start with that question. And of course, since I'm building something that will benefit Twilio's customers to troubleshoot, and we have so much expertise troubleshooting, customer issues ourselves, I found empathy within Twilio's experts within the company. and I interviewed a bunch of them as well. Now, while I was doing all this to build empathy, I was trying to find an early goal, a sense of what I'm trying to accomplish while I'm trying to increase this NPS score, which was the leading indicator of something is wrong. And so the early goal that I came up with was that we need to increase transparency and somehow demystify Twilio messaging, which is such a iffy, wishy-washy goal. What can we do with that? Well, these goals can then define success metrics. In my case, increasing transparency and trust became about increasing that NPS score, which was our original indicator. Then I wanted to enable customers to do self-serve troubleshooting, which means they don't have any problem doing it themselves. Remember, we talked about how things have to be fast, working, integratable, and easy. This was the easy part. When something goes wrong, give them the tools to solve it themselves. And I thought that the proxy indicator for this would be that we would see a reduction in the number of support tickets that customers send us. Now, the biggest part became, how will this impact the company's financial metrics? And an easy way to think about it is, if we get less support tickets, we have to serve support tickets less, and so therefore we save some costs. But that's a really hard justification for making a decent sized investment into your product experience. The better way to think about it is, will I unblock revenue that is currently blocked by increasing trust and transparency, demystifying Twilio? I thought I could, and I found proof of it in the ways that the RFPs were written for the contracts that we were shooting for. And I pointed to ways that we would unblock sales from executing on these RFPs. As I did product discovery, I initiated a bunch of changes. I made an update or 2 or 100 to the docs that were already out there about Twilio's API products. I read all those support tickets, and I noticed that 6 of them could have been answered if we had just updated one FAQ or fixed a bug, a tiny little bug on the console, or explained an error better. And during the product discovery phase, whenever I found an easy insight, easy wins, I just plucked that low-hanging fruit from the tree. Then I found what the personas were that we were trying to serve. Persona number 1 was people who were monitoring Twilio's performance. These were ops people. They wanted easy visibility into the health of their applications on Twilio. Fair enough ask, right? A health check. Then the developers needed tools to filter and drill down on whatever the analytics that they were building on. And the last is, we needed product managers who could engage with the data to optimize the effectiveness of their applications. Product managers are building products on top of Twilio's products. And so they are one of the first customers, at least the top 3 customers that we need to serve whenever we're building something. Now that I understood the personas and their problems, I could kind of think of, hey, what would delight them? What is the end goal of how we could help them? And what the milestones are along the way. I thought of it as world-class analytics for troubleshooting, new dashboard experiences that, helped you troubleshoot and gave you the transparency that you needed, which could then serve as the platform, the infrastructure for alerting against any changes in your data. And then maybe one day we would get to a place where we'd automate most of this process, and anomaly detection, machine learning algorithms would automatically catch when you needed to be informed and what the solution needed to be. So this became a potential roadmap for troubleshooting on top of Twilio. And then I had to come up with, how would we think about building it? And we've already established the success metrics of how you measure whether this is working or not. Which means we can think about, how do we build such a thing? How do we approach designing such a thing? In terms of building Remember the fact that hypergrowth means you're building infrastructure, not features. So the infrastructure needs to be thought of from the architectural decisions you're taking around scaling and reliability, around hosting costs, for example. And then we could talk about the performance needs. How quickly does it have to load? How many people might be using it at the same time? And beyond that, once it's infrastructure, how can I build products on top of it without more code? Next, we had to talk about the design principles of the experience that customers would see. To me, the easy part was it has to be easy to use and it has to be visually pleasing, meaning pretty. But what our discovery led us to understand is that to troubleshoot effectively, there has to be really well-clustered data, organized in very specific ways to make it actionable for people. And the data has to be able to be filtered at every level. As many dimensions of drilling down as possible should be possible. Which meant that how we designed this experience was not just pretty, but super functional and really catered report by report to the different users that we had identified early on. It's troubleshooting, so it should be immediately actionable. So we made sure that there were calls to action of what you could do when you found something. And then during the beta program, I learned more and more about how certain people had color blindness issues, and the screen colors that we were using could be made more accessible by following some accessibility standards. And that made this whole product, I thought, 2x more delightful because we had made sure 99% of the world could see it the way that we had designed for them to see it, even the ones who were colorblindness. What this led to was a dashboard experience that is super highly rated, that deals with the use cases that we had identified for different personas early on, and is currently making a splash at Twilio's customer experience. The results are that we have 10,000 plus happy messaging customers who are now also Insights customers. The net promoter score is up, support ticket volume is down. Both of those are in the right direction. And remember how we were talking about finding the North Pole of making an impact on your business? I can point to $100 million plus in deals that Messaging Insights has now unlocked for the business to be able to acquire. That's definitely moving the needle for our company. And with the right validation of the problem and the solution, you can build us kind of an impact too. Remember, pro tip, if you want to get a free product funded that doesn't immediately get revenue from selling that product for your company, find a way to connect it to revenue. If it's a compliance product, you can find revenue at risk because we're not compliant with something. If it's something like an analytics product that we just talked through, find ways to make more deals available to grab by fulfilling some needs that are available in the contracts you're trying to chase. If it doesn't affect your top line and it doesn't affect your bottom line, then whatever idea you're playing with may just be a hobby project, and maybe you don't need to build it. We've talked about a lot of things. Let me bring it all back together with these 3 things to remember. For enterprise products, you can't just A/B test your way to glory. You have to have the instinct built on a lot of metrics and a lot of customer empathy. And that instinct will guide you in the right direction to find the goalpost that will make your customers the most successful. 2, being in hyperscale means that all of your features, edge cases, will be brought to light. The spotlight will be on the parts of the code that are fragile. And you know, when you scale your application infinitely in hypergrowth, all of your code becomes fragile. And so you constantly have to make features turn into products, turn into infrastructure. And last, as a product manager, your ideal job profile is not to just go and build all the features that people are asking you for. Really, it's the opposite. It's to build the stuff that moves the needle, to find order in the chaos of this deluge of data coming your way, and seek out ever more data to go prove your hypothesis wrong. But if you build the instinct and the empathy to understand what will make your customer successful, you will find those golden nuggets that'll give you order in the chaos. And you build those and make a splash. Good luck. I hope you'll use these ideas to go and build fantastic technology that make us all more successful, more productive, and have more fun in life. You can stay in touch with me. I'm available on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and I write some articles on Medium from time to time. Check me out. Hashtag @Prateek. Till then, enjoy building and hope our paths cross again.